We will illustrate subtraction of fractions using an example. You have half a pizza left over to eat for lunch today. You take out the box and you heat up 1/4 of a whole pizza. How much is now left? This is the problem that we are doing. 1/2 minus 1/4. This is what the pizza box looked like when you took it out of the fridge. You have half of a pizza left. You want to eat 1/4 of a whole pizza for lunch. So you took out 1/4. What is left in your pizza box now? You have 1/4 of a whole pizza left. So 1/2 minus 1/4 is equal to 1/4. We will discuss techniques for subtracting fractions in the following problems that will not require us to draw a picture. Subtract 8/11 minus 2/11. Just like addition, when we subtract we need a common denominator. This problem says that we have 8 pieces out of 11 and we are subtracting 2 pieces out of 11. The pieces are the same size, so we are subtracting 8 minus 2, and then we will get our answer out of 11. So we will subtract our numerators, 8 minus 2, and keep this over the same denominator. 8 minus 2 is 6 over 11. So we have 6 pieces out of 11 left over after we subtract 2 11ths from 8 11ths. We are now going to subtract mixed numbers. The first method that I show you, we will line up the whole part and the fraction part vertically. We will call this method 1. We will write our whole number and our fractions lined up vertically. We notice that we have a common denominator, so when we have a common denominator, we can subtract the numerators. 7 minus 1 is equal to 6, and we keep the denominator. 5 minus 3 is 2. This problem is not finished because we have an unsimplified fraction part. 6 and 8 are both even numbers, so we know we can divide the numerator and denominator by 2. So we always need to simplify our fractions before we say we have a final answer. So we will divide the numerator and denominator by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So our final answer is 2 and 3/4. We will do this problem using method 1 as well. We will line up our whole parts and our fraction parts in this subtraction problem. Notice our denominators are the same, so we will subtract our numerators, 1 minus 3. But we can't do this. We can't take 3 from 1, so what we need to do is we need to borrow from our whole number. We will borrow 1 from the 7, making that a 6, and the 1 that we borrowed we will put with the fraction part. We will now change this 1 and 1/4 to an improper fraction, the whole number times the denominator plus the numerator. 1 times 4 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So we rewrite this as an improper fraction. Our whole number is now a 6, and we write the rest of the problem down. Now we are able to subtract. 5 minus 3 is equal to 2, and we keep our denominator 4. 6 minus 2 is equal to 4. So now we have a fraction that can be simplified further, so we need to divide by the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor for these two even numbers is 2. So we'll divide the numerator and the denominator by 2. so we end up with 4 and 1/2. So let's review. We had common denominators, so we wanted to subtract the numerators. We saw that we could not subtract 1 minus 3, so we needed to borrow from the whole number. We borrowed 1 from the 7 and made that a 6. The one that we borrowed we wrote as a whole number next to the fraction part. Then we took this mixed number and made it into an improper fraction. Then we were able to subtract the numerators of the fraction parts. Before we said we were finished, we needed to check the fraction to make sure that it was completely simplified. We saw that we could divide out of 2, so we did that before we said our final answer. Subtract 4 and 2/5 minus 2 and 4/5. We will do this problem using method 1. For method 1, we will line up the whole parts and the fraction parts vertically. We see that we have a common denominator, so we will subtract the numerators, 2 minus 4. We can't do this. We can't take 4 from 2, so we need to borrow. We will take from the 4 and make it a 3, and put the one that we borrowed as a whole number next to the fraction part. Next, we will change this mixed number into an improper fraction. The whole number times the denominator plus the numerator. 1 times 5 is 5, plus 2 is 7, keeping the denominator a 5. Our new whole part is 3, and we write the rest of the problem down. We are now able to subtract the numerators. 7 minus 4 is equal to 3, keeping the denominator a 5. 3 minus 2 is 1. So our answer is 1 and 3/5. Let's review. First, we tried to subtract 2 minus 4, and we could not do that. So we needed to borrow 1 from the 4, making the 4 a 3. The one that we borrowed we put next to the fraction part. Then we changed this mixed number into an improper fraction. Then we were able to subtract the numerators. Then we subtracted the whole parts, and we got our final answer. Now we will do this problem using method 2. For method 2, we will change the mixed numbers to improper fractions first, then subtract. Then we can change the answer into a mixed number by dividing. Let's change this into an improper fraction. The whole number times the denominator plus the numerator. 5 times 8 is 40, plus 7 is 47 over 8. Now we will change this to an improper fraction. 3 times 8 is 24, plus 1 is 25 over 8, and we are subtracting. Notice we have a common denominator, therefore we will subtract the numerators and keep the denominator. 47 minus 25 is equal to 22. Notice we have an even number in the numerator and the denominator, and therefore we know we can divide both by 2. So let's simplify this by dividing by 2 in the numerator and the denominator. 22 divided by 2 is 11, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. This is the answer as an improper fraction. We can change this into a mixed number by putting the top number under the division sign and dividing by the denominator. 4 divides 11 twice with 3 left over. The remainder is 3, so that becomes our numerator, and our denominator will stay a 4. So our answer is 2 and 3/4. This is the answer as a mixed number, and this is the answer as an improper fraction. So method 2 says to change our mixed numbers into improper fractions, we need a common denominator, we subtract the numerators, simplify if possible, and then we can change it to a mixed number if we would like to. We will subtract 7 1/4 minus 2 3/4 using method 2. For method 2, we will change our mixed numbers to improper fractions and then subtract. Let's change 7 1/4 to an improper fraction. The whole number times the denominator plus the numerator. 7 times 4 is 28, plus 1 is 29. And we keep the same denominator. Now we will change the second number to an improper fraction. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 3 is 11. We have a common denominator, so we will take the numerators and subtract them over the same denominator. 29 minus 11 is 18. Notice we have two even numbers. We know that we can divide any even number by 2, so we will simplify this by dividing the numerator and denominator by 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. This is the answer as an improper fraction. We can change it to a mixed number by putting the top number, or the numerator, inside the division symbol and dividing by the denominator. 2 divides 9 4 times. We subtract and get 1. 1 is our numerator and 2 is our denominator. So 9 halves is the same thing as 4 and 1/2. Subtract 3/5 minus 1/10. Notice that the denominators are not the same. When we subtract, we need to have a common denominator, just like when we added. We can find the common denominator by finding the least common multiple of 5 and 10. We can do this two different ways. We can list the multiples of the larger number to see the multiple that is the smallest that both 5 and 10 divide. We can also use the formula that says multiply the two denominators together and then divide by the greatest common factor. We see that the first multiple of 10, which is 10, is divisible by 5. So the least common denominator is going to be 10. We will write both of these fractions with a denominator of 10. We will ask ourselves, what times 5 is equal to 10? What did we multiply by? We multiplied by 2. So we multiply the numerator by 2. 3 times 2 is 6. We did not change this denominator, so we do not need to change the numerator. Now we are ready to subtract. We subtract the numerators and keep the denominator. 6 minus 1 is equal to 5. We have the number 5/10. We can simplify 5/10. The greatest common factor of 5 and 10 is 5, so we can divide the numerator and denominator by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. So our answer is 1/2. Subtract 1/4 minus 7/10. We need to find a common denominator for the 4 and the 10. We need to find the least common multiple of 4 and 10. To do this, we will write the multiples of 10. The first multiple of 10 that 4 divides will be our least common multiple for both 4 and 10. 10 times 1 is 10. 10 times 2 is 20. And we don't need to list any more multiples of 10 because 4 divides 20. 20 is the first multiple of 10 that 4 also divides, so 20 is the least common multiple of 4 and 10. We need to write both of these fractions with 20 in the denominator. We ask ourselves, what did I multiply 4 by? to get 20, I multiplied by 5. So if I multiplied this denominator by 5, I also need to multiply that numerator by 5. So the new numerator will be 1 times 5, which is 5. What did I multiply 10 by to get 20? I multiplied by 2. So I also need to multiply this numerator by 2. Our new numerator will be 7 times 2, which is 14. Now we will write the numerators 5 minus 14 over the same denominator of 20. 5 minus 14, we need to change this to an addition problem by adding the opposite. And we will write 5 plus negative 14. We will use our rules for sign numbers. The signs are different, so we will subtract the numbers. 14 minus 5 is equal to 9. And then we will keep the sign of the dominant number. The number with the larger absolute value is 14. 14 is negative, so our answer is negative. So our final answer is negative 9/20. Subtract 6 2/3 minus 2 1/4 using method 1. When I talk about method 1, what I mean is we're going to line up vertically our whole parts and our fraction parts. Notice that when we go to subtract our fraction parts, we don't have a common denominator. So we need to find a common denominator between 3 and 12. What is the least multiple of 4 that 3 also divides? Our multiples of 4 are 4 times 1, which is 4, 4 times 2, which is 8, 4 times 3, which is 12, and 12 is the least multiple of 4 that 3 also divides. So we want to write these fractions with 12s in the denominator. So we will ask ourselves, what do we multiply 3 by to get 12? We multiplied by 4. So we need to do that to the numerator as well. 2 times 4 is 8. What did we multiply 4 by to get 12 here? We multiplied by 3. So we need to multiply the numerator by 3. 1 times 3 is 3. We write the rest of the problem down and subtract. 8 minus 3, we are able to subtract 3 from 8, so we can do that. 8 minus 3 is 5. And our denominator stays the same as 12. And 6 minus 2 is 4. So our answer is 4 5/12 because we cannot reduce 5/12. Now we will do this same problem using method 2. Method 2 we change to improper fractions and then subtract. 6 2/3 we will change this to an improper fraction. Multiply the whole number times the denominator and add the numerator. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 2 is 20, keeping the denominator 3. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9, over 4. Now we need to find a common denominator. As we learned from the last problem, the common denominator of 3 and 4 is 12. So we need to write these fractions with denominators 12. We multiplied 3 times 4 to get 12, so we need to multiply the numerator as well times 4. So 20 times 4 is 80. We multiplied 4 times 3 to get 12, so we multiply the numerator by 3. 9 times 3 is 27. Now we need to subtract the numerators. 80 minus 27 over 12. 80 minus 27 is equal to 53. And we keep our denominator. This is the answer as an improper fraction. To change it to a mixed number, we put the 53, the numerator, under the division symbol and divide by 12. 4 times 12 is equal to 48, and we will subtract and get 5. So our remainder is our numerator, and what we divided by is our denominator. So this, as a mixed number, is 4 and 5/12. This is the same answer we got when we did it method 1, 4 and 5/12. Subtract 8 and 1/4 minus 5 and 5/6 using method 1. Method 1, we will line up our whole parts and our fraction parts and subtract. We will write this vertically, and we notice that we do not have common denominators. So we need to find a common denominator for 4 and 6. We can write our multiples of 6. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. And we notice that 12 is divisible by 4. So therefore, the least common multiple of 4 and 6 is 12. So we want to write those fractions with a denominator of 12. So we ask ourselves, what times 4 is 12? 4 times 3. So we need to multiply the numerator by 3 as well, so that we have an equivalent fraction. What do we multiply 6 by to get 12? We multiply by 2, so we multiply the numerator by 2. Our new numerator will be 5 times 2, which is 10. Now we have a common denominator. We go to subtract 3 minus 10. When we look at the numerators, we see that we cannot subtract. So we cannot take 10 from 3. So we are going to have to borrow from the whole number. We borrow from the 8, make that a 7, and the 1 that we borrowed we will write as a whole number next to the fraction. Now we will take this 1 and 3/12 and make it into an improper fraction. 1 times 12 is 12, plus 3 is 15 over 12. Our whole part is now a 7. And now let's look at our fraction parts and try to subtract. 15 minus 10, we can now do that. 15 minus 10 is 5 over 12, and 7 minus 5 is 2. So let's review. We first had to find a common denominator. We found a common denominator to be 12. When we tried to subtract 3 minus 10, we couldn't do it. So we borrowed from the 8, made the 8 a 7. The 1 that we borrowed we wrote as a big whole number 1, wrote it next to the fraction part. Then we took the 1 and 3/12 and made that into an improper fraction. Then we were able to subtract the fraction parts, and then we subtracted the whole number parts. Now we will do this same subtraction problem using method 2. When we say method 2, what we are going to do is change the mixed numbers to improper fractions first, then subtract. We will change this to an improper fraction. The whole number times 4 is 32, plus 1 is 33 over 4. And then we will change this to an improper fraction. 5 times 6 is 30, plus 5 is 35. We see we do not have a common denominator. As we saw from our last problem, the common denominator of 4 and 6 is 12. So we need to write both of these fractions with a denominator of 12. We multiplied this 4 by 3 to get 12. So we need to multiply the numerator by 3. 33 times 3 is 99. We multiplied 6 by 2 to get 12, so we need to multiply the numerator by 2. 35 times 2 is equal to 70. Now we will subtract our numerators. 99 minus 70 over 12. 99 minus 70 is equal to 29. This is the answer as an improper fraction. We can change this to a mixed number by putting the 29, the numerator, inside the division symbol and dividing by 12. 12 divides 29 twice. 12 times 2 is 24. We subtract and get 5. 5 is our numerator, and 12 is our denominator. So 29 over 12 is equal to 2 and 5/12. This is our answer as a mixed number, and this is our answer as an improper fraction. Notice we get the same answer both methods. Subtract 8 3/5 minus 2. We will line up our whole number parts and our fraction parts. Notice there isn't a fraction part for this number, so there is a 0 here. So we are going to subtract 3/5 minus 0. 3/5 minus 0 is equal to 3/5. That was easy. And 8 minus 2 is 6. So the answer to this problem is 6 3/5. Subtract 6 minus 2/3. We'll do this using method 1. What we're going to do is we're going to line up the whole parts and the fraction parts. 6 minus 2/3. Notice we don't have any fraction part in our first number 6. There's no fraction part. So we have 0 minus 2/3. Now we need to have something to subtract from. I'm going to write the number 0, which is what we have here in the fraction part, in a really strange way. I'm going to write 0 divided by the same denominator as we have in our other fraction. 0 divided by 3 is equal to 0, right? 0 over 3 is still 0. So I really haven't changed anything. But now we have something to work with. What we're going to do now is we're going to do the steps we use for borrowing, using this as the fraction part for the number 6. 6 and 0/3 is the same thing as 6. So now we try to subtract 0 minus 2. We can't do that. So what we do is we borrow from the 6. The 6 becomes a 5. And the 1 that we borrowed from the 6 we write as a whole number 1. We will now take the 1 and 0/3 and change this into an improper fraction. 1 times 3 is 3, plus 0 is 3. So we get 3 over 3. Our whole number part is now a 5, and we write the rest of the problem down. So let's look at this number that we have at the top, 5 3/3. We started out with the number 6 being our first number. Does 5 3/3 equal 6? Well, yes, it does. This is equal to 5, and 3/3 is equal to 1. So 5 plus 1 is 6. So we haven't changed the value of this number. This number up here still equals 6. It's just written in a really funny way. So now we will subtract 3 minus 2 is equal to 1. And we keep the same denominator and 5 minus 0 is equal to 5. So 6 minus 2/3 is equal to 5 1/3. We will do this same problem using method 2. With method 2, we change to improper fractions and then subtract. We have a number 6 and we need to change this into a fraction, an improper fraction. To write any whole number as a fraction, you can write it as itself over 1. So now we have these two fractions, 6 over 1 minus 2 over 3. We need to find a common denominator. 1 and 3, the least common multiple of 1 and 3 is going to be 3. So we need to write these fractions with 3's in the denominator. What did I multiply 1 by to get 3? I multiplied by 3. So I need to multiply the numerator by 3 as well in order to keep it an equivalent fraction. 6 times 3 is 18. I want you to look at this number. 18 over 3. What does 18 over 3 equal? It equals 6. So we really haven't changed the value of this number at all. We've just made it look very different. We did not multiply anything to get the common denominator. So we don't multiply the numerator by anything. It stays the same. We have a common denominator, so we subtract the numerators, keeping the same denominator. 18 minus 2 is 16 over 3. This is the answer as an improper fraction. We can change it to a mixed number by putting the numerator inside the division symbol. 3 divides 16 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. We subtract and get 1. 1 is our new numerator, and 3 is our denominator. So 16/3 is equal to 5 1/3 as a mixed number. Notice we get the same answer no matter if we do method 2 or method 1. 5 1/3 is our answer.